introduce Ted. He's from NGF, and then we'll do any open forum if anybody has some things to talk about afterwards.
Thanks, buddy. So Ted Eleftheriou, if on a bet you tried to spell his last name, I don't think you can. Ted and I go way back. Ted was part of the player development team at PGA of America. He actually did a seminar out here in Philly a bunch of years ago. Is this your third year now with NGF, Ted?
No, it's not even a year and a half yet. So.
Oh my gosh, it feels like it's forever, buddy. My goodness. But Ted's the vice president and player development and engagement at NGF. Again, good friend, has done a lot of great work in the space. Ted's a PGA member, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Ted, so you can kind of do your thing. But really appreciate you taking the time, buddy. Hope everything's going well in the NGF world, my man.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let me see if I can do mine. Coming up.
Sorry we're behind, Ted, but it's all Jeff's fault.
It's okay. I'll still get you guys out of here by 1.
Nice. It's my kind of guy.
Can you guys see anything yet, or?
Yeah, we can see your screen, your browser right now, Ted.
My browser, right? Okay, let me see if I can now pop up PowerPoint. How about now?
Perfect.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. All right. Well, hey, thank you all so much. And yes, Jeff, same thing. The sentiments are the same. You've been great. Just good friendship we've had. I remember I told the story to Matt that after I did that presentation, you gave me a blanket as kind of a gift. And he was kind of like, yeah, I know you're from Florida. You'll probably never use it, but I use it all the time, as does my family. So, so yeah, excited about that. I'm probably the only Red Sox fan that snuck on this call. So I apologize in advance, and not looking to any big expectations again this year, but we'll see how it goes. But yes, I am a PGA member and just a proud member. And as you guys were talking about Brett being a quarter century member, it's hard to believe I started in '98, so I'm approaching that year as well. And as you all know, I mean, time goes by so fast. I also see so many faces here, and I recognize some of you from last time, and just bumping into each other at PGA shows and all that. So thanks for being on here as well. So let's move on. As you heard, I was a PGA member, am a PGA member. Was working for the PGA for about 6 years, doing workshops, delivering business development, player development type things, and just trying to create a message that resonates with everybody at the local level of how important their roles as PGA members are and why they should embrace that and why they should create value. I traveled around the country and even into Canada doing some of these, even did some Zoom calls back in the day before we had to with Australia. And you might have seen me in some of the videos. And I just want to say, for those of you who had to endure and watch me on ADM to get 3 MSR points, thank you in advance. For those who haven't yet and are planning on it, I apologize in advance. But no, in all honesty, it was great doing it, and hopefully you got some benefit out of it and you get your certification as well. So, and yes, opportunity appeared with the NGF, and it was at a time like, Frisco was coming on with the PGA, and while I was planning on staying on board, just out of the blue, something came up with the NGF, and it was pretty exciting, an opportunity for me to, I think, get my career in the next stage. And so I took a job with them, and I'm excited, and I'm going to share a little bit with you what we do with the NGF, which, let's just jump right into it. One thing that has really opened my eyes at the NGF is the amount of media requests that we receive, like daily. And I'm talking like stuff from like the Wall Street Journals and Forbes magazine and the Washington Post and golf publications, clearly. But what I also am like amazed at is how negative the spin that these writers want to put on golf. The negative, like spins like this, for example. These are back in 2019, some of the articles I just pulled out. Golf was back in the Olympics. Too bad no one plays it anymore. Or Death Watch. How much longer can golf survive? And then you have America's golf courses are burning. More than 800 golf courses have closed over a decade. Now clubhouses are going up in flames. I'll be honest with you, I don't know of too many clubhouses that are going up in flames, but I'll just take their word for it. And then, of course, amid golf's decline, towns must decide what to do with the land. So we get these requests, and it's always like, tell us how many golf courses are closing this year. Tell us how many rounds are down this year. Tell us why golf courses are making a negative impact on the environment. I mean, it just goes on. And even when we try to do a balanced approach and give them the information on both sides, oftentimes that's not the case. So golf gets a bad press from mainly articles that are not in the golf world, but sometimes even there it happens. And you might have seen some of these stats. In 2019, we had 24.3 million golfers. In 2019, we had 9 facilities open. Now, we measure at the NGF our golf courses and facilities by what we call 18-hole equivalents. What that means is that 2 9-hole golf courses equal an 18-hole equivalent. One 18-hole golf course, obviously, is an 18-hole equivalent. So when you see these numbers, that's what we're looking at. And 246 18-hole equivalents have closed in 2019. The thing about that is that's the record year for having the most amount of golf courses close in the history of the United States. And I mentioned the definition about the 18-hole equivalent because if 246 is the equivalent, we know there's a lot of 9 holes in there. So the chances are that the number is probably closer to about 280, 290 of golf courses closing for the year of 2019. Then we go to 2020. Weird year for all of us, right? We actually rose in the amount of golfers, 24.8 million golfers in 2020. And the amount of golf courses that opened, a little bit more, 10.5. Note that I don't have here, though, is that there were actually a lot of golf courses that took the opportunity to either finish renovation or start renovation and opened in the same year, 2020. And it was a pretty incredible number. And the amount of closures that happened was actually 193. And while that number is high, the good news about that is that it's actually lower and lower than it has been in several years. So we're hoping that we're seeing a trend now that maybe golf course closures were going the other way. Because in 2018, 13 years consistently, we had golf course closures more than we had openings, as was the case with 2019, and as is now the case in 2020. And yes, in past 15 years, from today to the last 15 years, we had a negative 11% growth rate, whereas prior to 15 years ago, around the 2006, 2005 mark, we had a 44% growth rate. And a lot of that is because we have an oversupply of demand. So what we call it at the NGF is that we're doing a correction in the golf industry with as far as the golf courses closing. So we'll see what that brings upon us for the things moving forward. And I said I'd keep it short, so that's all I got. And no, just kidding. There is good news, though, right? For one, golf courses supply versus other major businesses in the U.S. is pretty healthy. I am an avid, ridiculous Starbucks drinker. And when I saw this stat, I was like, there's no way, because in my mall, the Gardens Mall here in Jupiter, Florida, you can stand on the top floor next to a Starbucks and you look directly down and there's another Starbucks less than 100 yards away. And the fact that we have more golf courses than 2 Starbucks in the same mall just blows my mind. We have more golf courses than there are McDonald's, and we have more golf courses than have movie theaters. And even prior to pandemic, when there were a lot more of them open, we still trumped the amount of movie theaters. And more golf courses than there are Walmarts, which is also hard to believe. And it's other industries too. We have more golf courses than there are like ski resorts and on and on. So there's a lot of good things going on here. And the other thing that I want to show you here is if you look at the gray bars, that's the amount of golfers that play on courses, right? So you can see from about 2011-ish, 2010, it's been pretty consistent. So golf isn't really going anywhere. It's flat to some extent, but it's not really going anywhere. But then we started tracking in 2009 these off-course properties, these top golfs that were just new to the scene. And first, we didn't have an accurate measurement system. But then we said, like, hey, they're actually making an impact. So we should probably track their participation, see what's going on there. And if you add the top golfs, the standalone driving range, the indoor swing simulators, and what have you, you can see that in 2020, if you combine it with our on-course participation, we have 36.9 people that are in some capacity playing golf. Now, what excites me is this number right here, the 12.1 million, because that number represents the amount of people that go to like Top Golf, standalone driving ranges, and indoor swing facility simulators that have never been on a golf course before. 12.1 million people in the US. So that's opportunity for all of us. It's like, how do we capture these people and get them to our golf facilities? In addition to that, when you look at golf as a recreational sport against other sports as well, we're doing pretty good. We're at the top. We're tied with basketball. So 1 out of every 13 American plays golf. And if you were to include those that go only to Top Golf and only to driving ranges and only to indoor swing simulators and throw them in the list, well, 1 out of 9 Americans actually then participate in some kind of golf activity. Now, I'm going to take a pause here and ask all of you, what would you say is the fastest growing recreational sport that's happening in America now? And you don't have to like physically answer it, but I'll give you a second, see if you come out with the right answer. And you ready? Here it is. Pickleball, right? And you probably all guessed it. But even pickleball, with its popularity of growth, it has about 3.5 million participants. 1 out of roughly every 100 person in the US is playing pickleball right now. Now, I don't know about all of you, but what disturbs me about this photo is this man's ankle back here. I have no idea what's going on there, but there's no way that cannot be broken or that he's in some kind of a pain moving forward. But that's troubling to me. Let me give you some more stats just because we're on a roll here. 2020, it finished with the almost 502 million rounds, the most since 2006, and the biggest year-over-year increase since 1997, the year that Tiger won his first major. And then we talked about juniors. I heard that about junior golf and what's going on there. And the numbers of junior golfers from 6 to 17 has jumped up by 630,000, a year increase of 24%. That was the largest since, when Tiger won his first major in 1997. And the number of beginners, those who played on a golf course for the first time ever, the largest jump on record at 20%, with 570,000 more newcomers than the year before. In total, there were a record 3 million beginners in 2020. So some great opportunity there. And the number of female golfers rose by almost 500,000, 450,000 new female golfers playing, eclipsing the 6 million in total for the first time since 2007. So there is some good stuff going on there. I wanted to also give you some local stats that you may or may not be aware of. For example, in the state of Pennsylvania, overall, has over 900,000 green grass golfers, the 8th most nationwide behind only California, Texas, Florida, New York, Ohio, Illinois, and Michigan. So congrats, good job. Also, did you know that PA is the 7th in total U.S. supply with 670 golf courses at 604 facilities? So that's, again, a pretty impressive record. And that number that I stated before doesn't even include those that are just going to the Top Golfs and the outdoor swing simulators, indoor swing simulators, and what have you. In addition, you may or may not know, but the state had been at roughly a minus 30% in play through May compared to 2019. So like everybody knows, a pretty common story throughout the United States that up until where June started happening, like nobody knew what was going to happen to the golf industry last year. But the good news is that from June to December, and this is also pretty consistent, is that we saw a 40% year-over-year increase in play versus the same time the previous year. And the good news about that is that rounds-wise, Pennsylvania finished at 16% above in play year-over-year, just above the national average. And the final stat I have for you here is that despite losing basically all of April to the virus, there were more than 19 million rounds played in PA, which is, again, a very impressive number. So congratulations to all of you. I'm hoping you've seen some of the benefits from something that is clearly a not good situation, but hasn't been too bad for us in golf. So the opportunity is significant, right? We threw out some surveys, and we've been doing it for about 6 years now, and we go around and we ask non-golfers, would they be willing to try the game of golf? And our survey just basically has 4 answers. No, I have no interest in trying golf. Yes, I'm interested in trying golf. I'm somewhat interested in trying golf, or I'm very interested in trying golf. And if we take those numbers, the opportunity is significant. Those, if we just take those and said, I'm somewhat interested and very interested, and we combine them, that's these numbers here. When you combine the two together, that's 50.6 million people in 2019 who said they were either somewhat or very interested in trying the game of golf. And the good news in 2020 is that it still was growing. It's 58.9 million people who were surveyed that said, yes, we would be willing to try the game of golf for the first time. Now, that's a significant jump because in 2018, that number was roughly around 47, 48 million people. So that's a great opportunity that exists for all of us in the golf industry. and a little bit more for you in Pennsylvania, that there are 662,000 non-golfers who, based on this survey, said that they expressed that they were very interested. I didn't even include the somewhat interested. I didn't have that number, but we're very interested in trying golf for the first time. So again, some great opportunity for all of you. And when I was seeing some of the activities that you have planned, I think you're going to be able to capture quite a bit. So kudos. One final graph, and then I'm just going to take a little turn in the action here, is that we did find that from our rounds participation surveys that February did dip in rounds. And it's the first time that it's happened for a long time. Even last February was 11% over what 2019 was. So we were on track to probably have a pretty good year regardless of the pandemic, assuming that weather was going to hold and what have you. But when we look at this, we're not really panicked at the NGF, nor should you be. Not yet, because there were a lot of factors. The biggest one was weather, right? We had that cold snap that just went through the entire United States, and Texas got hammered really hard, which was unusual for them for several weeks. And in addition to that, with the pandemic and the weather, a lot of the snowbirds that typically go to Arizona or even Florida didn't do that last year. They either couldn't leave their state, or for health reasons they didn't feel comfortable, or just basically because they were just going to stay there because of travel restrictions. So there were a number of factors that were happening there that I think identifies why that dip happened. But March, I think we'll see a turnaround, assuming that the weather stays as good as it should. So, okay, so now what? I gave you a bunch of information and what needs to be done moving forward. Well, I was speaking at one of the sections a couple of months ago, and as I'm doing my presentation and giving some of the stats, somebody interrupted in the middle and said, like, hey, Ted, but hey, when are things going to return back to normal again? And the question actually caught me a little bit off guard. And I don't think he said it in normal being yeah, we want less rounds. We want less, I think. But that's what was going through my mind is normal in the way having another big year, record-setting year in 2019 where more golf courses have closed and opened, normal that the amount of rounds of golf were flat and even a little bit declining in 2019, that kind of normal. It doesn't seem like we really should be thinking about getting back to normal. I think we should be using what happened to us in 2020 and seeing how we can springboard off of that into something that I'm going to say is abnormal, that we're doing something differently. Let me show you what I mean. Back around the 1997 era where Tiger Woods came on board, we actually had a big spike in the golf industry in the amount of rounds and the amount of golfers that we had in the United States. The amount of golfers rose up to 30 million, over 30 million golfers in the US when Tiger was just dominating everything. But the interesting thing is if you look at this graph here and you look at that red line down below, that's the average amount of rounds of golf that a golfer played in a year. And while we had our best years ever as far as golf population, we had our worst years ever of amount of rounds that would be played by the average golfer. And we're trying to figure why is that? And the conclusion that we came with was that kind of similar to what's going on today, is that a lot of people saw this guy, Tiger Woods, and he was exciting and he made the game fun and people were shouting, "You're the man!" And he was dressed in red and he's sponsored by Nike and he was he was known everywhere. He was just this phenom, and it was. So we feel that a lot of people who've never played golf before saw this guy, said hey, I want to try that game too. It's not like my granddad's game. It's this is different. Only to find, as we all know, being somebody who's never played before, if you would step onto a golf course without any knowledge of what to do, and heaven forbid that you would end up on a Saturday morning tee sheet at 9 a.m. paired with somebody else, let's just say that probably the experience is going to be less than stellar. And that's what was happening, is that newbies would go out to the golf course, get really no instruction or any advice as to how to get to become a golfer. And they were out there and say this game is a lot tougher than I thought. I'm not playing this. This is I've had it. So they only played once or twice, which is why it brought the national average of the rounds amount played way, way down. My caution is, are we going to experience something similar? I mean, I can't speak for your facilities or any facilities. And this is not the NGF speaking, but as a golf professional, having been to facilities, I can't see that we've done anything different than what was going on back then. We welcome and embrace all these new golfers coming, but what have we done to help, say, the 3 million new golfers that have come for the first time to make sure they continue to have success in their golfing journey and become avid golfers? I mean, year over year, for the last decade, we get about 2.5 million golfers or million people to try the game of golf for the first year. But I don't need to tell you, just by that flat chart of 24 million, that we also have the same amount of golfers who leave the game of golf every year. So we don't want to see another bubble. And this is why I implore like a lot of people to help out. One is, if you go to outdoor activities in Pennsylvania, and I typed it in Google, this is what came up. And I'm just going to scroll through several pages. And by the way, you should be looking to see if you see any golf courses or activities here. Okay, so I found one, I circled it for you. I did find another one. Nothing there. Nothing there. And I actually went on a few, and I'm not going to take up your time just going. You're more than welcome to do it yourself, and type in your own like location. You can be specific as your town or whatever, and see what comes up. Because we're not doing a really good job as a golf industry competing against all the other outdoor recreational activities that are happening in the world, or in the United States, or Pennsylvania. And by the way, this is no different than any other place that I've spoken at, whether it was Houston a couple of weeks ago, whether it was Northern California, Southern California yesterday, Las Vegas, Nevada. It's the same story. Where I live, I mean, we have more golf courses in Florida than any state, and still golf courses don't even show up in this kind of Google search. And we do advertise our golf courses. So now I'm specific, golf courses in Pennsylvania. When I look at these images, imagine that you're a new golfer, and what is it that you see here that would say like, huh, I definitely want to go and try that game of golf. It looks fun and exciting. Does it? I don't know. You know, there's like the next page. We got a couple of golfers here and there smattered in there. That's good. And is it fun and exciting looking? I don't know. The other thing is, like, when I look at a screen like this, what would make me choose one facility over the other? I mean, if I'm a newbie or even somebody who wants to play, like, they all kind of look the same. What's going to make it stand?
Hey, Ted. I'm sorry, you just went on mute there.
Okay, back again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but screen's gone, or is the screen still up?
I'm seeing your browser right now.
Okay, let's go back to that. So did you guys miss my whole presentation? Is like, hey, thank you for allowing me to be here? Okay.
No, you only cut out there the last sentence.
Okay, thanks, man. Yeah, we need to find something. When you look at the other activities, it shows people actually doing them, kayaking and having fun with balloons or you know, whatever it is, camping. But golf, again, we just don't see that same amount of activities. So I'm saying this to say this, is that go ahead and look at your own websites and see what you have on there, or look at your marketing material and think like from an outsider who just picked this up, who just landed on your page, and see if you would think that, yeah, this would definitely get somebody to my facility, or does it perhaps need a little work on making it a little better, right? There's a term in the newspaper industry back in the days, right, which is called above the fold. It's the upper half of the front page of a newspaper,
where an important news story or photograph is often located. And here's an example of that back in the 60s when the man walked on the moon. That's the fold, really impactful story. In the digital world, above the fold is used for, and I'm just gonna like summarize this. If me as a person is looking on the website for a golf course and I land and I click on a golf course, what is that first image I see or words that I see without me having to scroll down or to click on a link to get more information? So that landing page that people see is known as above the fold in the digital industry. Here's an example, and some of you might even know it because it's in New York, but Cragburn, when I went on there, and this was a couple of years ago, and I went above the fold, this is what struck me. And it says, where friends get together and play golf. for all of those, you have maybe smaller screens. Let me just like accentuate that a little bit. Look at all those friends who are gathering together to play golf, right? The message doesn't really fit the image. And if I was somebody who's interested in probably becoming a member there, I'm not sure that it would juice me enough to say like, oh, I got to go check out the Cragburn. Now, in fairness, before I got on this call, I thought, you know what, it's been a couple of years. I should see if they've changed their above the fold image. And I went on there, and this is what's on there now. So they did. Still have the same line where friends gather to enjoy the game. It's a little bit different. But again, there is absolutely no friends or people anywhere to be found. And I scrolled down the page, and there were more shots of the golf course, the clubhouse, and I think it had like the staff, or like the main staff people. Again, would that be enough to like, wow, look at that staff person. I need to join because I want to get to know him or her, right? I don't know. These are all questions that I throw out to you and hoping that you would have answers, because having just an image of a hole or a clubhouse on your website as the first thing would be like Disney having this on their website when somebody lands on it and they're claiming it's the happiest place on earth. Again, the verbiage doesn't really match the image. So, Simon, for you, when you go back to your facilities or whenever you have some time, go ahead and visit your webpage from your phone, from your tablet, from your computer, and see what is the first impression that strikes you. Is it appealing? Is it something that's going to get people to come to your facility and try it out? Or is it just like, it looks like everybody else's and there's nothing really there that's going to like wow me to join or to play, right? Now, Theodore Levitt, he came up with a quote. He was a Harvard professor, was because he's passed away, in leadership and in management. And his quote is, people don't want quarter-inch drills. They want quarter-inch holes. And what he means by that is that nobody really buys a drill for the sake of buying a drill. There's a reason behind it. And in this case, the reason might be that your wife has said, like, you know, you got a lot of junk on the floor here. Why don't you go buy a shelf and put it out so that nobody's tripping over it and I don't have to see it? So me as a husband might go and buy a quarter-inch drill because I need to make 4 holes or whatever it is to build a shelving unit to put the stuff up on. Or maybe I'm buying that quarter-inch drill because rather than spending the money on buying a shelving unit, I can make it cheaper. Or maybe the reason I'm buying a quarter-inch drill is because I want to have the pride of saying that I built that. That's the shelf that I built. Or maybe the quarter-inch drill, the reason I bought it is because I know it makes my wife happy. And if it makes her happy, then it makes me happy as well. So I'm not really buying a quarter-inch drill for the drill. I'm buying it because I know it's going to make my wife happy. So if we look at that lens through everything that we do at the golf courses and how we like promote ourselves, then really nobody really wants a wedge, right? You have to ask yourself, well, why are people buying wedges? Why are they impulsing? Why are they like, because maybe they just want to be like Phil and get that ball to take one hop and stop, right? They probably don't need another wedge. And why are people like taking lessons? Well, I thought it was to hang out with me when I was teaching, but I found out much later on that it had nothing to do with me. They wanted to get better in their game and they wanted to shoot lower scores and hit more good shots than bad shots and have fun with friends. So the real reason that they wanted to take lessons was maybe so they could outdrive their buddies for the very first time. And then I also think like we make the mistake of thinking that we're selling tee times, and reality is we're not really selling tee times, are we? We're selling the experience. I mean, the consumer's over here and the golf course is over here. It just happens to be that tee times is the way that they get there. So these are all quarter-inch drill examples of how it's not the real reason of like signing up on a tee time and buying one and going home to your spouse and say, oh my gosh, I bought a tee time. Maybe we could put it on eBay and increase in value. No, it's like I bought a tee time because I'm hoping I'm going to have a great day on the golf course. And this is where we all have opportunity to make sure that that happens for that consumer. We did a little project called Welcome to Golf. It started in 2019 prior to me coming on with the NGF. And what Welcome to Golf was, it was going to be an opportunity for us to really focus on adult player development. We specifically picked adult because there are a lot of junior supported programs out in the nation right now. But when we look at the adult section, Get Golf Ready is pretty much the only one that's doing anything. And now I know Ops 36 is looking into that market as well. So we thought, hey, let's put all our energies in the adult market and really focus in that area. So we picked 13 sites in the Denver area. We did a pilot with them. We did this huge advertising approach, meaning that we did all the advertising for these facilities, and our goal was to drive business to them. So in efforts with this advertising approach, we created a website where people could go to and they could find these locations and see what events they have and sign up for them. We also put brochures together and banners and rate cards and all that. We also put ads on Hulu, if you can imagine. We had video spots running on Hulu. We also put it in magazines, and we found the ones that were the most outdoorsy kind of magazines that people read in Denver, because we wanted to be an outdoor kind of activity. And we even went to social media, posted also onto like banner ads and different websites and what have you. So we went all out. And when I say all out, we spent well over 6 figures in making this happen. And this is what we got. We got 8.3 million impressions from these campaigns that we did, which is a staggering number. Of those 8.3 million impressions, we have 15,600 visitors to the website. Not too bad. But from those, the ones that actually sign up to say, like, I'm interested in learning more and to sign up to get a prize, was 544 of those visitors took the time to do that. And I'm going to tell you now, of those 544, we had a total of 91 students come out to these facilities. 91 students. That means even if we spent $100,000 on this, and we spent more than that, we spent over $1,000 per student to get them there. And here's the other challenge. Once these people got there, they had the same experience that they probably did back in the Tiger Woods era. Like, their instruction was basically, okay, here's how I'm going to make sure you have a proper grip and how you're not going to slice the ball and all this stuff. And they also didn't know what to do prior to getting the facility, and they didn't know what to do once they got at the facility. So we're not even sure how many of these are still out there playing. So we realized, and this is why I was approached and say, hey, can you come and help us, that there needed to be a change in direction. And the change in direction is that I wanted to focus on 3 areas that I think are important for the success. And that is to invite people to the golf course, to introduce them, and to retain them, right? So invite is just basically this, is that I think rather than us trying to push people to the facility and doing all the work for them, that they need to have some skin in the game as well. One of the reasons why our numbers weren't so good in 2019, because to my knowledge, with the exception of one person, and I'll mention her name in a minute here, nobody did anything. They just figured like, hey, welcome to golf, and the NGF are going to do all the work for us. We just need to open our doors, make sure our lesson sheets are open, and that'll work. And it didn't work. Now, we had one individual, her name was Britt, in Applewood Golf Course in Golden, Colorado, who was a rock star. She loved the idea. She embraced it. She went off property and marketed. She went to like grand openings where banks were opening and said, can I hand out flyers here? She went to businesses. She went to health clubs. I mean, she did an amazing job. Of those 91 people that signed up for lessons, she got 60 of them, right? So just her alone, whereas the other facilities just got a few smatterings of them. So we decided that somebody at the facility needs to help pull people to the facility to make it work versus pushing people. Now, there always still going to be that little bit push element. You still got to put banners out and flyers and maybe some ads here and there. But I encourage you to really focus on the pull part of it, to really create relationships with your community, reach out to them, go visit those businesses, tell them why golf is such a great game for their employees and all the stress is going on, and it's an opportunity for them to socialize after work, maybe even take some time off from their families or whatever it is. Go to the health clubs and help the trainers, show them how to play golf, do a clinic for them and tell them this is what golfers go through. And if you're better at knowing how to play the game, that you're going to be better at helping train golfers to prevent injuries and make them stronger. Those kind of things. When you visit your schools, how many of us really think about like, what about the teaching staff or the admin staff? Like, is anybody reaching out to them? Those are the opportunities that we started looking for, that, hey, maybe there's more to it than just the basic stuff of putting a business card and a flyer on our doors and hoping people would come to our facility and sign up for stuff. And this is that 1/4-inch drill thing. Part of the things we need to discover so we have a good, effective marketing plan is what are the reasons that people are playing golf. And our new campaign moving forward in this year is we have a thing called #GolfBecause, and it has a blank line with a period. And we're going to put something around it along like, hey, learn how to play golf because, and then you fill in the blank. What are your reasons? The next part is introduce. Once we get them to that facility, we want people to have an amazing experience. And we forget sometimes of what it's like being the first time we go to a facility that we're not familiar with, or to participate in something that we've never done before. So we want people to feel welcome when they come in. We want to set expectations for the newbies that they're going to be playing golf if they take these lessons. It's a real player development program. We want to take them in a tour of the facility so they know where the golf shops are, where the bathrooms are, so they can change their clothes if it's after work. Where do they get the golf cart? What do they do with the bag drop area? And we also want to get the staff involved with everything that's doing, so that if we're taking a tour of some newbies to the facility, that, hey, we can have Charlie behind the counter talking to people about like how to make a tee time, or how to check in for your reservation, or how to strap a bag on the back of a golf cart, which we often see when people are pulling away and the bag doesn't pull away with them, or how to put like the bucket underneath the spout of your range machine before you put the token in, because the other way around doesn't really work out so well. But these are things that people need to know. And then take them out on the golf course or the driver range and start with little half swings first, versus typically we start with putting, chipping, pitching, half swing, full, right? And that's like a long process. And maybe theoretically it's the best way for people to learn golf. But what if we did do it differently? What if we put ball on 2-inch tees, gave them a 9-iron, showed them a simple grip stance, posture, all that, and then just a little L to L drill. And if you can get a new golfer to clip that ball and shoot it up in the air, whether it goes 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, it's a home run. People are going to be high-fiving each other. They're going to be like embracing. They're going to be coming away like, hey, I could probably play this game. It's not as hard as I thought. And then that's what we're trying to do when you get about like we call shot euphoria. So those are some options that maybe we can create a new golfer experience, but also like a new golfer experience for those that are also existing. And then the last part of the three-legged stool is the retention part. Is like, how do we keep them there? How do we find activities and create opportunities for people to come back and enjoy? And that seems to be always a tough one, right? But what about newcomer leagues, or play with the pro days where they can go on the golf course with the pro, or what are some of the things that we can do to get people coming back to the course? Because we know that the more they come to the course, the more comfortable they're going to become. And not only that, the more they come to the course, that course where they learned to play golf, they were introduced in a fun and welcoming way, and they got to know the staff and they know where to go and what to do, well, they probably have more options, and they're going to be loyal to that golf course rather than going someplace else. So one thing that we kind of hesitate from, but like part of the retention is sales too. And the sales process never ends. Let me tell you why. I'm not a rich man by any means, but all my life, I really wanted to get a BMW. So I found one. It was a pretty good deal. You know, it was a used one, low mileage. I finally splurged and I bought one. Within 2 weeks of getting it, the smell was coming through the air conditioning, and it was rancid, right? So I go to the dealership and I say, hey, this is like, coming through. It just got to go. Oh, yeah, that's the thing about living in Florida. That humidity really does a number on your job. Hey, this is what we'll do. We'll treat your lines and we'll clean out the system. And we'll put some new filters in there and you'll be as good as new. Oh, and by the way, that's not covered under warranty. So that's $500. So 2 weeks I got the car, I'm already dropping $500. I get the car back, I'm moving along. A weekend's coming up. It's a Saturday. And as I'm driving back from the grocery store to my house, the car starts to shudder and really just rattle and make this god-awful noise. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And now it's like too late into Saturday, and Sunday's the next day. So I couldn't do anything about it till Monday. So I bring it back Monday morning. And I say, I don't know what's wrong with this car. They keep it there for over a week doing all these test diagnostics. And every day when I'm checking in, when they say, like, we don't know what's going on, we brought in an expert. After a week of this kind of stuff going on, they said, you know what, your engine's shot. We're just going to get you a new engine. So they got me a new engine, which was grateful. And that was zero, because if it wasn't zero, well, and it was great. And they said, hey, your car's going to be like brand new. So I drive off the lot. Sounds good. Everything's great. Driving to my house. The next day, I'm backing out to go to work. As I'm backing out, the car starts making this rattling noise. It's just like, ugh. Drive it back to the dealership, and I'm pretty fuming now. And they said, oh, it's just an engine mount on the side. We forgot to put one in, and we'll take care of it. And they took care of it, and it's been fine. Until about a month afterwards, as I'm driving the car, and the same rancid smell came back. And I go back again, and they said, yeah, it's not really covered under warranty. I know. We just did about a month and a half ago, but it's $500. And to this day, and it's been about a year and a half now, as I turned my car on yesterday, when it was 89 degrees and humid out here, the rancid smell is coming back. I tell you this story because the sales process never ends. It's not like when I bought that car, it was done, right? I am like not super happy with the way it's been going, and I'm still not, because that smells back. And what about our golfers? Do we think once we got them on the golf course, that's it? Or once we give them a lesson, that's it? Or once we sell them a club, that's it? No, their story continues on as they're using that club, as they're playing golf after your lesson, or as they're experiencing the whole process at your facility. Because when they're done, they just might tell somebody else off this facility, like, I had an amazing experience there, or I am never going back to that club again. Or in pros, I know we get the blame sometimes. Oh, the pro changed my grip and I cannot stop snap hooking now. I guess it's better than a slice, right? We hear that all the time. And then, I bought this club and I dropped $350. My wife didn't really want me to, but I was sure I was going to give him the extra yardage. And oh boy, I don't know what happened, but I'm not hitting it like I did in the demo day, right? So the sales process continues as people talk about it and tell others and just have that experience. So many people stop at invite, but there's introduction and there's the retention part. And regardless of where the consumer is on their path to wherever or however far they want to go in their golfing experience, we have to be there with each one of these steps to invite, introduce, and retain them to continue forward. All right, I'm coming close to the end here. Imagine if, like, part of the sales process for those of us who are coaches, get in the habit of asking, so when are you playing next? Or that we can train our outside service staff that when they're greeting somebody who's just come off the golf course and they're cleaning clubs and doing small chit chat, saying like, hey, do you want me to get on my walkie? I could contact the golf shop right now. I can set you up a tee time for next week. I mean, that's the kind of little things that we can do now to help bring these people back ongoing, and something to think about. So the welcome to golf thing, I'll wrap it up with that and move on and we'll finish up here, is that we tried 6 sites in 2020. And as everybody's gone through COVID, 3 of the sites could not open. One of the sites, Fort Sam Houston, was only limited to military personnel, where originally they're open to civilians as well. But we did very little for them. I'm embarrassed to say it, but we did very little for them. We didn't produce all the marketing materials and banners and all that. But what we did do is we managed to get into training at the beginning of 2020 that was about how to go out and get off property and market themselves. And as you can see by these numbers here, they just blew it away. The Chambers Bay there, which is very popular anyways, but like what they did in 90 days, they got 181 students in 90 days, was what some facilities like a Welcome to Golf facility would probably do by year 3. They would get that kind of people. So we were really happy, and we think everything's going well. What we're going to do moving beyond in 2021 now is we're opening up another 4 sites in addition to reopening those 6, is that we're really focused on the culture, because what we found is that if we don't have a GM that buys into all the stuff that I just talked about, to train their staff, to get everybody engaged and be part of this process of retaining people, inviting people, and then making sure they have a great experience, it doesn't work. So the right behaviors come from the GM really instituting it, and as such will create a high-performing environment. And that's for the golf course staff, and that's for the golf instructors as well. And if we can do that, imagine that if you're at a public facility, great, but if you're at a private facility, what can that mean for you? If this is a typical private facility initiation, and the average term of a person staying as a member at a club is about 12 years and how much they spend, this is what would happen if we just added more people. So this is the invite more people to a club thing. And this is what would happen if we actually have people spend more money. So this is them having a better introduction to the facility and the golf course and the experiences there. And this is what would happen if we retain people longer than 12 years because they enjoy all the process. And the best part of this is when we do all 3, this is what could happen. And that's like a pretty significant number and a pretty significant increase. So I implore you to think about how can you invite people, introduce people, and retain people moving forward. This time that we have in 2020 is like none other. I may never see and live long enough to see anything, if it would even happen again, of what happened in 2020. So we need to take advantage of it, and business as usual just won't do. Think about that 3 stool, and you can do your own versions of it, but like maybe you can take away some of these items and move it into something that you can create at your place. Think about getting off property and encouraging your staff to do it and pull them back into here. Think about what can you do to create an amazing experience for the golfers that are visiting you, with having then keeping coming back to retain them. And then what kind of programs can you offer them to have them coming back to your facility as well? I want to wrap up with 2 things here, and I swear we're done. One is, where's your pencil? There's this author, his name is Paul Auster. And Paul just loved Willie Mays. I mean, that was his idol when he was a kid. And the thing was that when he was 9 years old, he actually got an opportunity to meet Willie Mays at one of the games. And it happened to be that Willie was walking by the fence, and he says, hey, Mr. Mays, can you give me an autograph? And then Willie Mays says, sure, kid. He goes, got a pencil? And he, oh, shoot, I don't have a pencil. Dad, do you have a pencil? No, I don't. He's asking the crowd that's gathering. Nobody has a pencil. Eventually, Willie gives him back the piece of paper and says, sorry, kid, no pencil, no autograph, and walked away. And he never saw Willie Mays again. And the story about that is that the rest of his life, and he's still living, to this day, he always carries a pencil in his shirt pocket or someplace on him because he never wants to ever miss an opportunity that could present itself out of the blue. I tell you that because it's the same thing with here. A lot of golf courses and people that I've been talking about, like, Ted, we get it, but we're just so busy right now. Like, we don't need any of this stuff. Like, I am telling you that as more and more things open up, I mean, opening days today for the MLB and more activities, and there's a Travis Tritt concert going down my street here like tomorrow night, and all the stuff that's going on. Will golf still have the sustainability and all the numbers that we had last year? Maybe, but what happens if they start to slip? What happens if, like, hey, this is the first time I noticed we got a couple of spots left on our tee sheet that didn't get filled. We don't want to wait till down the road when things start going back down again and then say, we got to do something. We don't want to be caught unprepared. I'm encouraging you to do something now, even at your busiest times, to be ready for that just in case it happens. And the other thing is, I just want to talk about, like, in the older phones, the iPhones, whenever there was a software update, you would get this showing up. And the 3 options are installed now, later, in details. Now, if I was to ask you which one do you pick, I would think that all of us, if we were honest, would say later. And the reason why is, like, well, I like the way the apps work now, or like, like that's going to take like 7 minutes out of my day to wait for it to download before I can use my phone. I don't have time for this. Or like, that means I have to clear stuff off my phone because it's asking for a gigabyte and all I have is 240 megabytes. That means I got to delete pictures and apps and then I got to reinstall them and all that, or it's just a nuisance, right? I implore that you don't get into the same mindset when it comes to what I'm talking about today, that we don't want to wait till later to start some of this process. We don't want to be like, but I like the way things are going. That's great, but are they going to stay that way? Or I'm just too busy to take time to implement some of these thoughts in it. Yeah, I get it. We're all super busy. Absolutely. Or, but I like, I just don't have the space anymore. Totally agree. I mean, golf courses are tapped out. But start already implanting those seeds down the road to get people to think about you now. And it might be your current customer base that you're looking at to do this with. That'll keep you healthy and sustainable moving forward so that we don't go back to business as usual. And it's not back in 2019 like, I'm hoping that we get back to normal. All right, start now. And thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I have my info up here if you have any questions or you want to reach out to me afterwards, or if you have time now, I'm more than happy to as well. In addition to that, a lot of people don't know a facility membership at NGF is only $250 and you get a wealth of information and services available to you. I had to put that plug in there because the sales process never ends. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ted. Really appreciate it.